Peace and blessings, family. Welcome back to another Through the Bible. On this Through the Bible, I'm going to pick up with Acts chapter 25. I'm going to do verses 1 through 27. And of course, you know what to do. Get your pens, your paper, your Bibles. Just follow along and take notes. All right, Zahar, let's go ahead with Acts chapter 25 and verse 1.
All right. Now, when Festus was come into the province, after 3 days he ascended from Caesarea to Jerusalem.
All right, so here it is, Festus, who took Felix's place. And so now we have Festus. He has come into the province. After 3 days, he ascended from Caesarea to Jerusalem. So he done left Caesarea and now he is in Jerusalem.
Hmm.
Okay, verse 2.
Then the high priest and the chief of the Jews informed him against Paul and besought him.
Wow. And so as soon as he got to Jerusalem, here it is, the high priest, the men of God,
Yep.
and the chief of the Jews informed him against Paul, against their own brother. And they what besought him. And what was they seeking him for? Verse 3.
And desired favor against him, that he would send for him to Jerusalem, laying wait in the way to kill him.
Look at it.
Hmm.
And this is what these chief and high priests were doing. They desired favor against Paul. And you know what they said? Uh, Send him to Jerusalem so we can kill him, so we can break the commandment.
Yep.
The ones, the big 10 that they always harp on. They want to murder Paul.
Hmm.
And that's not loving your brother. Okay, verse 4.
But Festus answered that Paul should be kept at Caesarea, and that he himself would depart shortly thither.
And that's what I like about it. You ain't gonna tell him what to do.
Mhm.
He said, "No, I'm gonna keep Paul, and he's gonna be at Caesarea, and that he himself should depart shortly after." So he said, "I'm gonna leave, and I'm gonna go by there too. You don't tell me what to do." He know they're a bunch of scoundrels anyway. Verse 5.
Let them therefore, said he, which among you are able, go down with me and accuse this man, if there be any wickedness in him.
All right. And so he said, any of you who is able, just come down to Caesarea with me. Um, you that accuse him, if there be any wickedness. He said, I ain't saying it is. But if there be any, then y'all come and prove it yourself. Come down with me and state your cause against Paul. Verse 6.
And when he had tarried among them more than 10 days, he went down unto Caesarea, and the next day, sitting on the judgment seat, commanded Paul to be brought.
All right. And then it says, and then he had tarried among them more than 10 days. Boy, they probably like these the longest 10 days. Let's get this thing going. And then he went back down to Caesarea, and the next day, day doesn't start at night. So it's the next day, he's sitting on the judgment seat, commanded Paul to be brought.
Now in court.
Mm-hmm. Court is in session.
In session, that's right.
But next time, Festus, we gonna be on the seat
That's
of
right.
judgment, and we gonna have you brought up.
That's right.
Verse 7.
And when he was come, the Jews which came down from Jerusalem stood round about, and laid many and grievous complaints against Paul, which they could not prove.
And so, and when he was come, the Jews which came down from Jerusalem, because remember just prior we read that he said, you that accuse him, come on down with me to Caesarea. And so here they are, they came down from Jerusalem to Caesarea, and they stood round about. And that's what I like it. God always let you be outnumbered.
Yeah,
It's just you standing alone. And they lay what many grievous complaints against Paul, which they could not prove. Because remember, they said he was a mover, sedition, a pestilent fellow. They just saying everything, teach against the law, but they could not prove that. And that's one thing that we need to make sure in our life, that when we do, our enemies do stand against us, that they can't prove it.
Yeah,
That we ain't
yeah.
out there doing dirty things. We ain't into stuff we shouldn't be into.
That's right.
Make them and prove them out to be liars. Verse 8.
While he answered for himself, neither against the law of the Jews, neither against the temple, nor yet against Caesar have I offended anything at all.
And this is Paul. He answering for himself. He said, neither against the law of the Jews, neither against the temple, nor against, nor yet even against Caesar have I offended anything at all. I'll say I ain't guilty of nothing. They lying on me.
That's right. 9. But Festus, willing to do the Jews a pleasure, answered Paul and said, Wilt thou go up to Jerusalem and there be judged of these things before me?
And that's just like the enemy. You know, they got to throw their little rock in there. I'm going to do the Jews a favor. You want to go up to Jerusalem? Because I know they want to get you. So he answered Paul and said, so would you be willing to go up to Jerusalem and there be judged of these things before me? That's the question he asked. Because you already know what they lying in wait for him at Jerusalem. So
Right.
there would be no judgment. They're going to just kill him. But he wanted to do the Jews a favor. I'm sure some of them chief priests, some money was involved.
It's all about the bread.
Verse 10.
Then said Paul, I stand at Caesar's judgment seat, where I ought to be judged. To the Jews have I done no wrong, as thou very well knowest.
Right. And Paul said, no, I stand here at Caesar's judgment seat where I ought to be judged. Because remember, too, he was a Roman citizen. And he said to the Jews, I have done no wrong. And you know what? You know it too. Because birds of a feather flock together. If I were rolling dirty, y'all would be patting me on the back.
That's
like
right.
they did when he was a Pharisee. Verse 11.
For if I be an offender or have committed anything worthy of death, I refuse not to die. But if there be none of these things whereof these accuse me, no man may deliver me unto them. I appeal unto Caesar.
Right. So Paul said, if I'm an offender, or and basically he's saying, if I'm guilty, like they said, hey,
Go ahead.
Kill me. But he said, but if there be none of these things whereof they accuse me, then he said, no man may deliver me unto them. I appeal unto Caesar. Know why? Because I'm not
Guilty, that's right.
And remember, the Lord told Paul, be of a good cheer. Just like you, you witnesses will be in Jerusalem, you're going to do the same thing somewhere else, sending you out. So that's that confidence in God. Verse 12.
Then Festus, when he had conferred with the council, answered, Hast thou appealed unto Caesar? Unto Caesar shalt thou go.
So Festus, when he had conferred with the council, they done talked it out and what need to go on, he answered, he said, oh, hast thou appealed unto Caesar? Okay, unto Caesar you go then. Oh, so you want to go to Caesar, then that's where you're going to go. I'm surely thinking that he would thought that Paul was guilty, that he would be put to death, by Caesar. So yeah, go ahead. You want to go to Caesar? Go ahead. It'd be like your supervisor telling you, yeah, go ahead to the manager. Or they all be in cahoots together. Verse 13.
And after certain days, King Agrippa and Bernice came unto Caesarea to salute Festus.
All right, so now here is King Agrippa and Bernice, which came to Caesarea to greet Festus. Verse 14.
And when they had been there many days, Festus declared Paul's cause unto the king, saying, there is a certain man left in bonds by Felix.
All right. And so when they had been there, they've been there for a little bit up in his Caesarea. Festus declared Paul's cause unto the king. Let me talk to you, king, about what's going on, this situation. Agrippa saying, he said, there's a certain man left in bonds by Felix. See, it wasn't me. See, it happened under Felix' watch. Let's get that clear first. Verse 15.
About whom, when I was at Jerusalem, the chief priests and the elders of the Jews informed me, desiring to have judgment against him.
Okay, verse 16.
To whom I answered, is it not the manner of the Romans to deliver any man to die, before that he which is accused have the accusers face to face, and have license to answer for himself concerning the crime laid against him?
All right. And so he said this thing been going on with this man and these chief priests, the elders of the Jews. They wanted to have judgment against him. And so he says, so, as a Roman citizen, you have the right to plead your cause and be face to face with your accuser before you just can't put him to death. Okay? And so he said, that's where we at right now. Verse 17.
Therefore, when they were come hither, without any delay on the morrow, I sat on the judgment seat and commanded the man to be brought forth.
All right. And he said, so when they came down here from Jerusalem, he said, without any delay on the morrow, that would be the next day, not that night, I sat on the judgment seat and commanded, that they bring the man forth, which we just seen that Paul was pleading his cause up here in verses 7 and 8. Verse 18.
Against whom, when the accusers stood up, they brought none accusation of such things as I suppose.
Man, he said accusers stood up, they wasn't saying nothing. Nothing. I thought it was going to be he was stealing. He done started a gang war. He said, but nothing. I'm just sitting up here speechless. Like, what? He said it wasn't no accusations like that. I thought it was going to be. Verse 19.
But had certain questions against him of their own superstition, and of one Jesus, which was dead, whom Paul affirmed to be alive.
Let you know he called Israel's belief superstitious. That's superstitious stuff. They believe that's what that's about. Talk about this one Jesus which was dead, and Paul affirmed him to be alive. This Jesus was resurrected. Well, it sure got Felix. After Paul got done with him, he retired.
Felix resigned.
Verse 20.
And because I doubted of such manner of questions, I asked him whether he would go to Jerusalem and there be judged of these matters.
Stop that. You know good and well. They told us for the Jews' pleasure. You asked
we
this
can
man.
Always spit his
yes.
stuff.
Because you wanted some money. Would you go to the you gonna go to Jerusalem because this y'all situation to be judged for these matters? Verse 21.
But when Paul had appealed to be reserved unto the hearing of Augustus, I commanded him to be kept till I might send him to Caesar.
All right. And he says, so when Paul had appealed to be reserved unto the hearing of Augustus, he said, because Paul said, no, I appeal to Caesar, so I'll stand there to be judged of this situation. So he said, I kept it, and I commanded him to be kept till I might send him to Caesar. Verse 22.
Then Agrippa said unto Festus, I would also hear the man myself. Tomorrow, said he, thou shalt hear him.
All right. Then Agrippa said to Felix, he said, okay, then I will also hear the man myself tomorrow. Why we keep having the next day? It just ain't rolling
Right.
like that. It's
Why
just
not do it that same night? Because
right.
that'll be the next day.
Because they gonna be asleep. And he said, then I'll hear what's going on. Verse 23.
And on the morrow, when Agrippa was come, and Bernice, with great pomp, and was entered into the place of hearing with the chief captains and principal men of the city at Festus' commandment, Paul was brought forth.
All right, so now it's the next day when King Agrippa was come and Bernice with great pomp. I mean, they done rolled out the red
Yeah, that's why
carpet.
I'm
They got the
laughing.
horns blowing
Yeah.
and fireworks going off, just making a big show. Why? Because this is King Agrippa. And um, and once they entered into the place of hearing or into that courtroom with the chief captains and the principal men of the city, at Festus' commandment, they told him to bring forth Paul. And so Paul was brought forth. Verse 24.
And Festus said, King Agrippa, and all men which are present with us, you see this man, about whom all the multitude of the Jews have dealt with me, both at Jerusalem and also here, crying that he ought not to live any longer.
Sound just like what happened to Christ. Crucify him.
Crucify.
Crucify him. And look, it said a multitude of Jews that have dwelled with me and at Jerusalem are also here against one man, because why? He's preaching Christ.
Yep. And if this ain't our people, I don't know who this is. This is the stuff that we do. You go to these heathens. How this look?
Right.
You going to these heathens about matters, number one, you should handle them on
Right.
yourself.
Yep.
But you know how it is for our brothers and sisters to fall into the hands of the heathens. And that's why
right.
you're bringing him to the heathen.
Yep. And see, they would have took Paul back to Jerusalem, but that Roman citizen thing, see, they scared of
Yeah.
They were scared that word might get out back to Caesar that, yeah, they killed a Roman citizen. His name was Paul. So that right there had him in the crosshairs. So
yeah.
Because Paul used that citizenship card.
He sure
He used
did.
it
He
well.
pulled it right out.
But looking at saying that this man ought not to live any longer, that your brother needs to die because he's teaching faith and love.
But that ain't how you feel about these Romans who
No.
are ruling and occupying you,
That's
who've been
right.
oppressing you. You don't feel that way about them, no.
Not at all. That's their bestie.
And this is a lot of Israelite mindsets to this day.
Sure is. Yep. It happens today. Verse 25.
But when I found that he had committed nothing worthy of death, and that he himself have appealed to Augustus, I have determined to send him.
So he said, man, I ain't found nothing worthy to put this man to death. He basically like, this ain't going to be on my hand. So nope. He says, he said he's not found anything worthy for this man to be put to death, like his own brother saying he need to die. He says, so he himself have appealed, that he wants to go to Augusta, Caesar Augusta. And so he said, this is where I am determined to send him, because that's where he wants to go as a Roman citizen. Verse 26.
Of whom I have no certain thing to write unto my Lord. Wherefore I have brought him forth before you, and especially before thee, O King Agrippa, that after examination had, I might have somewhat to write.
All right, so this letter got to go to Augustus. You just can't send a man up there without no knowledge. So the king, Caesar Augustus, he has to know what's going on. And so he says,
But think about it, he like, I ain't got nothing to write.
Yeah, he's like,
because
what certain thing, right?
Because remember, these guys could get in a lot of trouble for, escalating certain things that could be handled at their level to the Caesar.
Yeah.
Back in the day, them kings didn't play, put you to death.
That's right.
Came and got your head. You
That's
and
right.
everybody involved. So he's like, careful.
That's right. They ain't finna declare no state of emergency. Your head gonna be chopped
That's
off.
right. That's right.
Yep.
No executive order.
That's right.
That order gonna come from his mouth.
That's
Your head's
right.
gonna roll.
That's right. All right. So verse 27.
For it seemeth to me unreasonable to send a prisoner, and not withal to signify the crimes laid against him. Because the Caesar gonna say, "Hey, I'm busy, and you got me up here dealing with this foolishness.
That's right.
This is time I spent I could have been doing, and you gonna get in trouble." He knows it.
That's right. That's right.
So he hoping King Agrippa can get something,
Yes.
extract something that he can write that he sees reasonable.
Well, yeah. Help me out, Agrippa, because man, he like my life on the line, especially when I can't prove to Augustus, the crimes.
Yeah.
Now I look like an idiot. And so if he telling me, you send this, you don't deserve to be in your spot as a leader. So, all right. So that's all I have for this chapter. You have anything else you want to add?
No, ma'am.
Well, all right, family. With that said, we will say shalom.